Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Today we have some very big news out of the state of Iowa where Republican incumbent Senator Joni Ernst is reportedly not going to be seeking re-election to the Senate in 2026. Now in this article from CBS News, which I believe was the first to report this, said the Republican senator has told confidants she plans to reveal next week, specifically next Thursday, that she will not seek re-election to the U.S. Senate in 2026. Now, Ernst, who is 55 years old, has served in the U.S. Senate since 2015 when she won the Senate race in the 2014 midterm election. A lot of Iowa Democrats have already jumped into this race, including State Senator Zach Wald, State Representative Josh Turek, and Des Moines School Board Chairwoman Jackie Norris. Ernst has been evasive about whether she would run for a third term in 2026, but in public remarks earlier this month predicted continued GOP control in the state of Iowa. Every day we get a new Democratic member of the House or Senate that decides to run for the Senate seat. Bring it on, she said at a meeting of the West Side Conservative Club. Bring it on, folks, because I tell you at the end of the day, Iowa is going to be red. Now, White House officials had hoped that Ernst reportedly would run again instead of joining other Republicans who were leaving the Senate, including North Carolina Senator Thom Tillis, Alabama Senator Tommy Tuberville, and Kentucky Senator Mitch McConnell. Also worth noting, GOP Senator Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee announced her run for governor, but her Senate term does not expire until 2030. If Blackburn does become governor of Tennessee, she'll have to resign this seat and appoint her chosen successor. Ernst had told people close to her that she intended to only serve 2 terms. She has accomplished what she set out to do and intends to head to the private sector, one of the sources said. So this is very interesting, because the 2026 Senate race in the state of Iowa is one that I've been watching very closely, and one that I know a lot of my viewers on the channel have been watching very closely as well. Iowa is a very interesting state, because in 2024, it voted for Donald Trump by 13.2% at the presidential level, which that is in the ranking of likely Republican, likely falling between 5 and 15%. But not only that, at 13.2%, Iowa is one of the more strong, reliably red states on the map. Just to give you an idea, 13.2%, Iowa voted essentially on par with Texas, which was 13.7%, voted more red than Florida, which was 13.1%, and just to give you an idea on the Democratic side, Democrats won Colorado by 11 points, New York by 12.6, and Illinois by 10.9. So Iowa voted more towards Donald Trump than Colorado, Illinois, and New York did for Kamala Harris. So based on the 2024 results, you could argue Iowa is about as red as a state as it ever has been. Now back in 2020 as well, obviously Joe Biden won this presidential election, Iowa still voted for Trump by 8.2%. And in 2016, it voted for Donald Trump by 9.4%. So that's been 3 presidential elections in a row. Iowa has been a very red state. The last time that it didn't vote red was 2012, when Barack Obama won the state against Mitt Romney by 5.8%. At the Senate level, things have been pretty similar. In 2022, Republican Chuck Grassley, the other senator from Iowa, won re-election against the Democrat Franken by 12.2%. So again, a very large, solid win for the Republicans. Now, what gives Democrats a little bit of optimism was in 2020, Joni Ernst won against the Democrat Teresa Greenfield only by about 6.5%. It actually ended up being a very interesting race. When you look at more in depth on this race, you would see going to the general election, things were actually very close. The Real Clear Politics polling average only had Joni Ernst leading over Greenfield by 1.4% heading into it. Now, obviously the polling in Iowa ended up being off by a good amount, as Ernst ended up winning by 6 points rather than 1.4, and a lot of those other undecided votes ended up all rallying behind Joni Ernst. But it looked like it was going to be a very competitive race going into it. And that would give the Democrats a lot of optimism, especially if they were to face off against Ernst again in 2026, which 2026, based on the way midterm elections usually work out, 2026 should be a strong night for the Democrats, more so than the Republicans. Now, for 2026, Joni Ernst, in her own right, had her share of, I would say, gaffes, especially back in May, when Ernst was speaking at an event and sparked controversy by replying to a constituent upset about thousands of preventable deaths resulting from Medicaid cuts in the One Big Beautiful Bill that the Republicans and President Trump were promoting. And she made a comment saying, well, we are all going to die during the town hall, and she got absolutely eviscerated both in the media and online and in her home state from people about that comment she made. So in addition to the close election in 2020 and this comment, Democrats were really on the attack and looking forward to going after Joni Ernst in the Senate race. With Ernst now officially not running, it's now going to be an open race on the Republican side. Now, the name that's been mentioned the most is Ashley Hinson, the U.S. representative from Iowa's 2nd Congressional District. And I do think she would be the strongest Republican candidate for the general election that probably would win the Senate race without too much of a problem. The large reason being, Ashley Hinson represents one of the 4 districts in Iowa, Iowa 2, in the U.S. House, and she won it by 15.6% in 2024 after 2022, where she won it by 8.2%. Now, according to the Cook Political Voting Index, this district's only listed at Republican +4. So that is a lean Republican district, and if Hinson were to not run for this district again and instead run for the Senate, Democrats, I think, would have a stronger chance, personally, at winning Iowa's 2nd District at the House level than they would have winning the Iowa Senate race. So I'll get more into that in just one moment. But this district, if Hinson decides to not run, will be the most competitive it's been since 2020, where Hinson only won by 2.6% after or before the district redrawn following the 2020 census. So that's an important race to watch for, as well as what happens with Iowa's 2nd District on that. But now I think Hinson has expressed interest to run, and I think she's the likely Republican nominee. Also worth mentioning, Matthew Whitaker, the U.S. ambassador to NATO under President Trump and nominee for U.S. Senate in Iowa in 2014, has expressed interest also in running for this race as well very recently. The only thing that could throw a wrinkle in this race would be if President Trump were to endorse Matthew Whitaker or someone else other than Ashley Hinson that may potentially have a Republican primary that becomes very competitive, and essentially we'll have to wait and see how that all plays out. But for now, I think Ashley Hinson is most likely to become the Republican nominee. Whereas on the Democratic side, there are still a lot of Democrats in this race that, even though Joni Ernst is not running, are still seeking the nomination. Most notably, Zach Wahls, a state senator from Iowa, Josh Turek, a state representative, Jackie Norris, the former chief of staff to First Lady of the United States Michelle Obama from 2009 to 2011, and Nathan Sage, market director of KNIA, a commercial radio station in Knoxville, Iowa. All 4 of them are contesting the Democratic primary at this point in time. J.D. Scholten, a state representative from Iowa, dropped out of the race and did endorse Josh Turek. Now, this is going to be interesting to see how this develops for the Senate race, because the current predictions for this race, when Ernst was still in it, all had it as likely Republican from Inside Elections, Cook Politico, and Sabo Crystal Ball. Again, consistent with that 5 to 15% margin of victory we've seen from Iowa a lot in recent years. But the early polling that's been done, there hasn't been much, and it has all been done by a Democratic pollster, public policy polling, so you do have to take these results very much with a grain of salt, showed a pretty competitive race for Joni Ernst versus all the Democrats, where Jackie Norris versus Joni Ernst was a 3-point lead. For Ernst, Nathan Sage versus Joni Ernst was a 4-point lead. Ernst versus Turek was a 4-point lead. Joni Ernst versus Zach Wahls, only a 1-point lead. And Ernst versus a generic Democrat from back in June showed about a 2-point race. Now, there's a lot of undecided vote here, and as it is a Democratic poll, it's always tricky with how much, when it's a affiliated party poll, how much support are they off by. I've usually used anywhere from about 5 points or more. They're usually off by, so Ernst can be anywhere from a 3 to 8-point lead based on these numbers. Again, it's not always an exact science, but I'm always assuming a partisan poll, a Democrat or Republican poll, is off by about 5 points at least. So I think Ernst would still probably win by a likely margin, but even still, I think what we saw in 2020, where Ernst only won by about 6.5%, is kind of what she was tracking to do again in 2026 if she were to be renominated and be the Republican nominee once again. Now, with her not in the race, it's a wide open race, and we'll have to wait and see how it all goes. But given Iowa's track record of the state, it's voted likely Republican in every single election for Senate and President, and in, I believe, governor as well, except for 2018, where in 2018 it was a lean Republican win for Kim Reynolds. It could get close at the governor level, but I think at the Senate level, it's going to continue to be a pretty reliably red state. The Democrats, I'm sure, are going to hope to contest, hope to make it competitive, but for 2026, I still have Iowa right now in the likely Republican category, which means whether it's Ashley Hinson or Matthew Whitaker or another Republican, I think they win it in between 5 and 15%. Now, I don't think the Democrats are going to give up on this race just because Joni Ernst is not going to be the Republican candidate, but I think it's certainly an uphill battle for the Democrats in this race as Iowa is such a red state. The best comparison I would make on this current Senate map would be like Republicans trying to go after the state of Colorado based on the electoral vote numbers from 2024. It just doesn't really make sense at this current point in time. And Ernst not running actually gives the Republicans a stronger chance at winning now, as the Republican they put up will not have the same gaffes and scandals and such that Joni Ernst has had. But I'm interested to hear what you think. Leave your comments down below in the comment section about this news that Joni Ernst is retiring and what you think this means for the 2026 Senate map. Thank you so much for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and I hope to see you in a future video.